Hello, and welcome to Joy and Pain with the Toneys. I am Natalie Toney.
And I'm Cedric Toney.
My handsome, chocolatey, sexy, debonair husband, And today we are coming with another topic. But before we discuss that, I want to remind you all to make sure that you like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel.
Definitely do that. We're going to get right into it because I think these topics are going to be fun and juicy. You know, they always talk about social media influencers, but we don't talk about marriage influencers. Yeah, so we're going to talk about those things. There's a couple topics we're going to bring up for each thing, some hot ones, some great stories about the joys and pains of those throughout our relationship. I'm gonna just kick it right off.
So,
the family influences. Ooh, this is gonna be good. It's very good. I know.
You start, baby.
We talked about on an episode of families joining when you're married and being, take those into consideration of joining these families. But man, I knew one of my biggest storming moments when I walked out and tried to leave the marriage was I made her mom an influencer subconsciously just because I was mad at myself and some other things. And her mom's presence, and we lived with her, so she had every right to be an influencer, but I took it personal. She had gave her insight on our marriage, and I felt like that was encroaching on our personal marriage, and I made that a big deal, and it should not have been. That's a small bit of the story, but that was one instance of family influencing. Even my mother and father influenced my marriage decision, not to get married or just, I couldn't even use them as great examples because they didn't stay married. Looking how they separated when I was young, roughly about 3 or 4, they got divorced. And so that influence impacted me throughout life. Like I didn't want to even get married, never wanted to get settled down, never wanted to even have kids. That's just a little portion of it. But then the family influence also comes into where your parents might tell you, don't do this, or don't do do's and don'ts from them. And I do remember my father telling me, and I never shared this with you, saying, hey, to wait on the marriage. Yeah. And I know I had that time frame of 3 years of being, he knew that I should have waited.
That's what I'm saying. So, he knew you weren't ready.
And that influence there, it didn't influence me to take that heed to his direction, but that was one thing that, it could influence and it could have changed the outcome of our marriage.
Yeah.
Also with family, I had a lot of, like the naysayers and not a lot, but just a couple of them just say, hey, are you sure that's what you want to do, to get married to this young lady? And I did not take heed to their direction as well, and went my own path and still married this beautiful woman to me. So yeah, what do you think about my family kind of like throwing a little shade, telling me not to marry you?
I don't think it's shade, because I already know your family loves me. They loved me. They always have. I think in the beginning, there were a few doubts or questions about me, but once they got to know me, I know they care. So I don't even think that was shade. I think it was more so they saw that you probably weren't ready. So I don't see that as shade. But I agree with Cedric that your family have the things that they say or questions that they have about your relationship really do impact you. I know for me, and I know this is a sore spot because Cedric sometimes gets frustrated with me because my mom and I are extremely close. After Cedric, I would say my mom and my sister are my best friends. And so I had to learn that I can't bring my mom into my marriage. It took some years. I can't always go to mommy and ask her questions or tell her what's happening in our marriage. And I had to learn the hard way that, your relationship is for you. And I think my mother has excellent advice. And really, she might be one of the reasons why we're still together, because early on, there were 2 times in our marriage where we were looking at getting divorced. And that first time, it was my mom that said, you know, if you do everything in, what she said to me was, baby, I can't tell you what to do, but what I can say is don't have any regrets. Do everything in your power to make your marriage work. And then if it doesn't work, you can say you did everything to make it work. And so, but there have been also times where she's butted in and she didn't have no business butting in. And I've had to learn, and I will tell her, like, Ma, you know, you're overstepping your boundaries. And now she knows, and she's like, oh, I'm sorry. But just like Cedric, my parents were divorced. And so sometimes it's hard to take advice from people who aren't married when you're asking questions to people who are not married. I know my parents have my best interest at heart, so I try to view it that way. But my dad is currently married, but I know they have my best interest at heart. Let's talk about friends.
Friends, yeah,
because that's a big thing.
This is gonna be a big one. We might spend a little bit more time on this one. So the friends. So I know a couple things with the friends. You got your single friends, you got your married friends. Before marriage, the single friends are A-okay. And it's not that you need to cut them off after marriage, but you just need to start being mindful of that. For some of my close friends, they weren't married, they were still single friends. And I'll even touch on my fraternity brothers aspect after this portion, and you can give me feedback as much as you want. But my single friends, I was still hanging in the single lifestyle, just to admit. Still going out, staying out late, drinking, kicking it, going to clubs. This is after marriage. And not realizing the impact of what they were influencing me and causing a lot of those pains of hurting myself and hurting our marriage. Because, you know, even if I was not doing nothing, that's still taking away time from my wife, thinking about it. And, you know, I didn't have a balance. I never found the balance. I didn't even consider a balance of friends with those single friends, and I might have just, you know, kind of hurt things a little bit with that.
Absolutely.
Well, that's all she has to say.
When you're married, it's okay to have single friends, but you have to have boundaries, and you have to set those boundaries. And like Cedric said, he didn't necessarily set those boundaries with his single friends, and so it's important, because I still have single friends and I love my single friends, but you just have to set those boundaries. For me, a lot of it wasn't that I didn't like his single friends, but the choices. I love you. I love all your friends, but the choices that they made and decisions that they made would influence my spouse. And I'm not putting it on them, because he's a grown man and he would choose to do the same things with them. And so it was just that balance that wasn't there, and there needs to be a balance. I'm going to my frat.
And no negativity towards Kappa Alpha Psi. Yo to the noobs. You know, spring 2004, D up, noob over here. You know, Deuce Club. But I was a frat boy at heart for many, many years, and I blame the frat, and it's not the frat's fault. It's still my personal fault for a lot of the things I did. I think I was trying to prove to them I still had it. I was still a playboy. I was still that pretty boy Newt. Still can go out there and get the ladies. And I think I just kept trying to prove to them I was that dude. I had a facade, a persona, and a notion that everyone had about me with my reputation, with how I was in the streets and with Kappas. And I felt like I just had to keep maintaining that. This might be the first time she's hearing some of this stuff, but I felt like I just had to just keep that lifestyle going for myself. And I think I didn't want to lose it. Even after marriage, I was like, man, that's because it was my glory days. I was just relishing on those days and those times. And Kappa didn't get me in a lot of trouble. I got myself in a lot of trouble using and abusing Kappa for my excuse to what I wanted to do. Friends. Then we got to talk about having female friends. I have two great female friends. Shout out to Katrina and Tasha. That wouldn't be possible without my wife being friends with them. I'll say that.
Yeah, and let's just say this. You know, you hear the saying, no new friends. And that was where I was in my life. Like, nah, dude, we not having no new friends, no new female friends. unless I know them, unless they're my friend, unless we're all hanging together. There is no individual hanging out.
I was trying to have female friends that she never knew, and I was
I'm like, who are these girls on social media? I don't know them. If they're not my friend, they're not your friend. And so I respected Cedric because he met them through a mutual friend, and he came to me and he said, babe, I met these 2 young women and they're so cool. It's not nothing dirty. I just want you to know, like, I would like us to start building a relationship or hanging out with them. They're really fun. They're really cool. I know they're single, but I think you would enjoy hanging out with them. And so he invited me with him when he would go and hang out. And so they have now become my friends, close friends. And
I stole them away from me.
I really did.
Ain't my friend, honestly.
I really did steal them.
We need you back, Trina. We still get together and hang out, but that's one thing you got to take into consideration. When guys have female friends, they need to be either besties with your spouse if she's a female, or besties with your man if it's a guy. And one of her best male friends is my frat brother, Jacob. We hang out a lot with fraternity business, but we still can go grab a drink or smoke a cigar. Shout out to Ellison Crowley Cigars. He has his own business. That's not our shout out for a black business, but we're giving a couple shout outs today. But yeah, Ellison Crowley Cigars. We'll give you the link to those cigars. It's a black owned cigar company here in the Midwest, right out of Wichita, Kansas. Shout out to Jacob, to Jeremy, to Jonathan, and Kyle Ellison for that real dope cigar brand. But if I didn't know Jacob or trust Jacob, I wouldn't let you have a male friend. And I know it gets biased, and we try to, and I know we're going a little tangent here. It gets biased with guys don't want their female to have any friends that's a male, but I'm comfortable with that gentleman. So
and he knew I had been friends with Jacob since middle school, way before he came in the picture. I really love all my friends. I'm grateful, you hear a lot of women that don't have a lot of friends, but I'm grateful to call several women my best friends. And I have a good circle around me, and all of them have been supportive of my marriage, even when he wasn't shit, or doing right by me. They still supported me. I remember, again, when I was headed towards divorce, I remember one of my friends, Crystal, saying, Natalie, you need to pray for him. Pretty much. That's all you can do is pray for him. And she said, and I'm praying for him. So I would say the influence for the most part has been positive. I know when we were dating, my friends was looking out. They'd be like, look, he's doing X, Y, and Z, and this is how I know. And they would catch him up for me. They were my investigators. But since I've been married, they have been, and several of my friends are married, but I also have single friends, but several of them have been supportive of my marriage. And even when they don't agree with what the things that Cedric has done, they don't tell me, girl, leave him, or he ain't whatever. They pretty much say, if this is what you want, deal with it. If not, we are there for you and we support you. And so I appreciate that. And I can say I don't have those friends that say in my ear, leave him, and all of that stuff. So I can appreciate that. And I thank all my friends, Brianna, Toya, Chris, I got to shout them out loud, Crystal, Aaron, Brianne, Whitney, Joy, Brittany, my other Brittany, India, all of my girls. I have so many. So, I love them and I appreciate them for being supportive. And some of them have gone through the same things that I have. And we've been able to cry on each other's shoulders and uplift each other. And so all we want is for all of us to win. So the influence is not necessarily like my sorors, and shout out to Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. Not necessarily influence, like them negatively influencing me or even speaking much about. I have a couple of sorors that I'm close to that Danielle, Lachey, all of those that we've had our come to Jesus talks about marriage, but none of them have ever, again, like my other friends, it has always been very supportive, crying on your shoulder, you crying on mine, whatever it needs to be. Now, I will say the influence that has been there is time taken away from my family. And so when we first moved back, I dove right into getting active in Alpha Kappa Alpha. I was like a chairperson of 2 different committees, and I was real busy. And so that took away in a very difficult time in our marriage. I used that to take up some of my time, and I shouldn't have used it that way. And so if anything, I would say it influenced my time spent with my spouse.
So we'll touch on social media. This one's not a big, juicy one to dig into as far as influence. We could say it's an influence as far as a means of communicating to different people you shouldn't be communicating to. But as far as, I don't say it's being as juicy as the friends one. You said some.
Let me take over social media. So I feel like in two different ways, social media has affected our marriage. So the first one is personally. I don't think it necessarily has affected Cedric, but for me, I will go on, especially in our dark days, I would go onto social media and see all these couples that were perfect. They had everything going on, or I thought, right? Because we know that only people put the good things. Nobody's putting the horrible things in their marriage, right? And so it started having me question my marriage and getting down about me. Well, am I a good wife? I'm not doing all this that they're saying on social media, so maybe I'm doing something wrong. And so it really, there are even times now where I have to step back from social media or remove myself. I'm not a huge social media person because those, it's that idea of trying to keep it up with the Joneses. Like, well, they're doing this in their marriage, so we need to be doing this. And so that really influenced my thinking and really messed me up. The other thing is a lot of times when I would catch him up with infidelities, it had to do with social media. Probably 8 times out of 10, it was through social media that something happened. And so I think because single women who are posting whatever, and I'm not saying that's wrong, because if I were single, I'd probably be that girl posting, cute pictures or whatever. But I think the access to see those women, to view those women is more tempting. And men too. I mean, I've seen men, and that's tempting as well. And so I think with the social media era, that has influenced our marriage because of the temptation that is there.
Okay, I agree with that.
Yeah.
I agree. I was thinking more of the aspect of marital style. Yeah, I wasn't even thinking of the negative things that it could bring. So you made some great points there.
Yeah.
And it has. I will admit to that. Just make sure you keep the right distance and share your social media with your spouse.
Yeah, get them passwords.
Ain't nobody getting passwords.
Follow
each other at least.
Each other, no.
All right. So that topic, I mean, if it has more, y'all can comment on it below. But work. Now, people don't ever really think about work being an influence to your marriage.
There have been times where I have felt obligated to stay late or to do things that took away from my spouse, and I had to learn to balance. And sometimes with work, you have to learn that work-life balance. Mm-hmm. And for those folks that are just really worker bees and they love to work and they're gonna work hard and they don't say no to anything, those are the type of people where that work-life balance can be difficult and can affect your marriage. And I think there was a time in there where that was me, where I was doing great at work, but my marriage sucked. And it was both ways. It wasn't just because of me, but I think at that time using work as an escape. So I didn't have to deal with what we were dealing with, but it took away from my marriage. Shout out to
Ellison, Crowley Cigars, but I do want to also give a shout out to my barber, TJ. Tell him TJ did it. He a Noop as well. Yo to TJ. Groom Therapy Studios. He does not just haircuts. He does a whole groom experience for men. I'll shout out
Wichita, Kansas.
Yes.
You're not here in Wichita, Kansas.
Yeah, so I'll give you his information. Share my love.
No, I think that's it. But joy
and pain.
Like sunshine and rain. Don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe. Yeah, tell everybody you know.
And hit that notification button on the bottom.
Yeah, so you know when we have new episodes.
Definitely hit that.
And black love, black love, black love.